Now, discuss these latest developments in Syria with James Corbett, who's editor of the Japan-based independent news and information website, the Corbett Report, joins us live from Osaka. Thanks very much for being here with us in the program, James. Now, first off, how crucial do you think is it to regain control in Homs by the Syrian government? And to what extent is it a turning point in the violence and unrest, which has been running for almost a year now?
Well, it's certainly an important event that's taken place, but whether it turns out to be a turning point at the end of the day, it's obviously too early to tell. And ironically enough, I think the answer to that question doesn't really lie in the hands of the Syrians themselves. It really hangs in the balance of the international community at this point. And as we see, there's still a lot of wrangling going on at the international level in the UN Security Council and other United Nations organizations and the Friends of Syria and all of these other international organizations that are putting various types of pressure on the Syrian government and or the Syrian opposition groups. So it's absolutely up in the air at this point, and it really depends on the extent to which the international community really wants to continue pressing ahead with the ongoing and admitted support for these supposed opposition rebels that have supposedly spontaneously arisen in Syria, but as we now know have been being funded and armed and trained and equipped by the international community for some time now.
Now, the opposition claimed that their withdrawal was tactical. So how likely is it that they'll regroup and return stronger with more armed violence in Homs or somewhere else for that matter?
Well, once again, I think at this point it really does depend on whether they will continue to be armed and equipped and trained and harbored in foreign countries and by the international community. And I think that this certainly is something that's come out recently in a number of different ways. Certainly last month, there were a number of multiply confirmed reports from various different news agencies confirming that Iraqi officials were admitting that certain long-established smuggling routes were being used through Iraq to funnel arms, money, and even jihadis to Syria to take part in this uprising. So once again, whether or not the opposition is able to regroup and to once again take Homs or some other city, I think is really dependent on the extent of the aid that they're going to receive. And if the international community loses stomach for attempting to institute regime change in Syria, I think we'll see the end of the opposition.
Okay, now let's take a look at the opposition setup there. I mean, even the United States agrees that opposition forces in Syria are extremely divided. So, in your opinion, what are the chances of them uniting their forces, and what role might foreign governments play in helping them do so?
Well, that's a good question, and I think once again the obvious parallel is what was happening in Libya last year, where Libya is of course quite a tribally divided nation, and it was quite remarkable how Gaddafi had managed to stay in power for as long as he did, given the remarkable divides in that country, and that must have spoken to some extent to the ability to keep that nation together as a nation. And despite the fact that the opposition was quite fractured, and as we are seeing now in the aftermath of that, they were able to come together through the support, the arming, and of course the NATO bombardment, which was obviously a key and decisive factor in decimating that country and getting rid of Gaddafi. And I think that parallel is playing out in Syria, where again the opposition may come from various different places and have different reasons for opposing the Assad government, but it's the money and arms and training and even the outside jihadis that are coming in to support them that are really the decisive factor in keeping this opposition going. So once again, I think it keeps coming back to this point. It's the international wrangling at the United Nations and in the Security Council that I think will be the decisive factor. And it's Russia that will probably play the key role in all of this, as U.S. Secretary of State, Assistant Secretary of State Jeffrey Feltman came out today to say the Russian stance on Syria is a key element of what's happening there. So it's absolutely crucial, the role that Russia and China might play in perhaps putting the brakes on the international community's efforts to institute regime change.
All right, James Corbett, editor of the Corbett Report, independent news website. Thanks very much indeed for talking to us here on RT.
Thank you.